In the previous videos, we mentioned about various stages of tendering process. This include the pre-qualification stage, where the employers are to identify the potential contractors who are qualified and would be interested in undertaking the project. Then the employer will issue tender documents to those contractors. Sufficient information and details are to be provided within the tender document. This includes the conditions of tender procedures, the contract conditions, as well as the details and specifications of the project. Based on the information provided in the tender document, particularly the bills of quantities, as well as the project details, the contractor will bid a price for the employers to consider. The tender document is then submitted back to the employer to be reviewed by the employers. The employer will need to decide which contractors are to be given the project. Once the contractors has been selected, the employer will award the contract to the contractor. With that, the construction project can commence. One important part about this tender document, it will be the information provided within the tender document. In these videos, we're going to discuss in detail about the information that are available in the typical tender document. This slide shows the typical content of the tender document. There will be notice to the tenderers. The purpose is to call for tender and to provide details to the tenderer. This includes the details of the project. The project titles are normally clearly stated, the due dates of the submissions, the costs incurred related to the submissions of the tender document, some rules and regulations related to the submissions of the tender, as well as some common information related to the process of the tender. The tenderer who have submitted the tender document are deemed to have read through all the necessary informations come together with this tender document. At the same time, the tenderers are deemed to be interested with the project and agreed to execute and complete the works as per stated in the tender document. This may also come together with the instructions to the tenderer, providing a list of the tender documents that the tenderer can do some cross-checking whether the tender document as acquired is complete without any missing informations, and some other instructions to the tenderers. Next, there will be form of tender, which is the forms to be filled by the tenderer and submitted together with the tender document. Filling this form of tender, it is like the tenderers are declaring his awareness and the responsibilities. Among the common one, the tenderer declare that they have examined all the necessary informations, including the supplementary documents that comes together with the tender document. The bidding price are clearly stated, as well as declaring the awareness of certain rules and regulations related to this tender document. Next, there will be bank guarantee form for earnest money. The tenderer need to provide evidence that he has established the bank guarantee for this earnest money. What is this earnest money? It is an amount of money that will be forfeited if the winning contractor refuses to sign the contract with the employer. You know that this tendering process involves bidding of several contractors, which the contractors need to compete among themselves in order to win the project. For a contractor to increase the chance of winning the tender, a contractor may bid for a lot of projects at the same time, trying their luck. As long as any of those projects are being awarded, the contractor can secure a project to carry on its business. However, in the case that a contractor wins several projects at the same time, which has gone beyond the capacity of the contractor may choose to drop the project which seems to be less attractive, and there will be a risk to the employer that the winning contractor refuses to sign the contract with the employer. In order to prevent this, normally the employer will set a requirement in terms of this earnest money. That means only those contractors who are truly interested with the project are to bid for the project. The employer will expect once the winning contractor is selected, the contract will smoothly be signed with this contractor. So this earnest money is serving as a deposit that is set aside by the contractor, which at this current stage is not handed over to the employer. This will involve the third party, which is the bank, that this amount of money is set aside in the bank. In the case that the contractor loses the project, not being selected for the tender, the losing contractors can retrieve the money. In the case that the winning contractor decided not to sign contract with the employer, then the employer will claim to the bank. This earnest money will be forfeited. This earnest money will be refunded once the contract is being signed with the employer. Next, it will be the bank guarantee form for performance bond. Similar principles. This involves the third party, which is the bank. The money is set aside by the contractor, which is not in the hand of the employer. In the case that the employer is entitled to claim, the employer will claim directly from the bank. This can prevent the problem that the contractor is reluctant to pay to the employer, or if this amount is in the hand of the employer and the employer is reluctant to pay to the contractor. So we have the third party to regulate the entire process to prevent dispute and conflict between the two parties. So what is this performance bond? It is claimed accordingly if the contractors fail to fulfill the contractual obligations or not meeting the standards. In the case that the contractors deliver the project below the standards, where there are defects, then the employers are entitled to claim for this performance bond. Whichever cost incurred related to this defect, it will be claimed accordingly directly from the bank. At the end of this defect liability period, the balance of this performance bond will be returned to this contractor. If the employers do not claim any from this performance bond, 100% amount of this performance bond will return to the contractor. This normally happens when the contractors fulfill all his obligations and meets all the standards without any defects. It is also possible for the employer to claim all the amount in the performance bond. I guess the limit it will be the maximum amount of this performance bond that can be claimed by the employer. Next, it will be the Articles of Agreement. This is a standard form providing all the essential informations related to the project, such as the contract sum, who are the architects, the structural and civil engineer, the mechanical and electrical engineers, the quantity surveyors, the specialist consultants, if any, as well as the definitions of certain terminology that appear in the contract document. In fact, this is a part of the agreement, that we know the contract sum, we also know all the parties involved, as well as the standard definitions of the terminology in order to avoid ambiguity and misunderstanding between the parties. Next, it will be the general conditions of contract. In these sections, a standard form of contract will be adopted. In our previous videos, we mentioned that there are quite a number of standards form of contract. As for this module, we're going to use this PAN contract 2018, and we're going to look into the details for each clause of this PAN contract 2018 in the following videos. After that, there will be specifications of the project. This includes the scope of the work and the technical specifications and requirements related to the project. All the details necessary to carry out the projects are to be disclosed in this tender document. There will be specifications of the materials and the workmanship related to the various stages of the work, such as the piling works, the excavations and earthworks, the concrete works, the brickworks, roof works, carpentry, joinery and ironmongery works, steel and metal works, and others. Specific details are given, including the standards related to the specific materials or work procedures, the properties of the requirements of the materials, and others. These are all technical specifications and the requirements as expectable from the contractor while carrying out the work. BQs will be provided, and this is subjected whether the PAN contract 2018 is with quantities or without the quantities. Next, there will be preambles to all trades. It provides explanations for the scopes and the pricing of the work, which should be read in conjunction with the schedule of rates and the specifications. This schedule of rates is important, as you know that this tendering document is by nature still at the planning stage. The construction works haven't commenced yet. The details provided, the technical plans, are all at the stage of planning, showing the intentions of the project. There are certain things that can be quantified, while there are certain things that cannot actually be quantified before the commencement of the work. For example, the piling works. We know that we need to drive pile into the soil until the pile set to ensure the stability of the foundations. We may have the soil investigation data giving us some information and idea regarding the estimated depth of the piles that may set in accordance to the requirement. It is only when we have done the piling work we will know the final amounts of the piles to be driven into the soil. Therefore, the total amount of the piles by nature is difficult to quantify at the stage of the tendering. On this basis, the contractor will still need to quote a price for that, and it needs to be transparent to the employer regarding the cost to be incurred, as well as the cost claimable by the contractors for a certain specific task. So this schedule of rate is a list of the rates for the staff levels and the plants hired that a contractor will use for pricing cost reimbursable work. That means in the case that the particular task is carried out by the contractor, the claim will be in accordance to these schedules of rates. Normally, these schedules of rate does not contain any quantities, and it is used when the nature of the work is known but cannot be quantified at the moments of tendering process. Lastly, there will be general summary of the tender. It shows the summary of the costs in accordance to the bills of quantities. This is the typical general summaries of tender. There will be 4 bills. Bill number 1, preliminary and general conditions. Bill number 2, building works. Bill number 3, external work. And bill number 4, provisional sum. The amount of each bill is listed here as the summations of each sections. The summations, it will be the total tender sum. This number should be carried to the form of tender, where the tender sum is clearly stated. With that, this outlines the typical content of this tender document.